Hello everyone, welcome to the graveyard. I'm Violet Hummingbird and this is day 19 of Spooky October, where every evening in the month of October I read you a true ghost story. And I'm usually on camera, but recently got a terrible gash in my head with an accident of falling, and I thought that perhaps this would add to the Halloween atmosphere, but then I think that might be a different kind of genre. I'm okay though, but hopefully I'll be able to be back on camera soon. But I am recovering, and all of your likes and well wishes are so appreciated, so thank you so much for being here. And today's story is by Patricia, and I'll be discovering this with you for the first time as well, because I have not read the story ahead of time, just skimmed it to choose it, and let's get right into it. This is an account of two experiences of a ghostly nature that happened to me while on a holiday in France. In the first, we had arrived at our holiday home in the Var area of Provence, a few miles inland from the south coast. It was a beautiful new house, surrounded by vineyards with a few houses along the dirt lane. The silence was unusual, no birdsong, yet there were birds in the trees. They would suddenly take off in a flock, but there was still no sound. Then we discovered that all birds were shot to protect the vines. So, the birds had learned a strategy. We enjoyed French village life. In this time, we were near to Ponteves, walking in the 3 kilometers to collect croissants and bread, or visiting the nearest town of Barjols for our other needs. One evening, we settled down late to sleep. As I closed my eyes, I heard a distinct sound of what I can only describe as an encampment, with the noise of horse harnesses chinking and an air of business such as you would expect with people relaxing or busy with their preparation for the night. I heard voices and distant singing. Thinking that a neighbor must have been having a party or a radio was playing loudly, I opened the window to check outside. This was no easy task, for we had windows with heavy wooden shutters to open. I leaned out, listening for the party. The night was black, and there was complete and utter silence. Having closed everything and annoying my doubting husband immensely with my activities, I lay down again, convinced that I had imagined it. I had not been drinking. Once more, the rattle of harnesses came with the feeling of being in the open air and experiencing the atmosphere of a camp and movement of animals and people. But there was no vision with this. Eventually, I heaved a sigh of puzzlement, fell asleep, for there was nothing unnerving about the sounds. In fact, they were strangely soothing. The next evening, it was the same. I investigated outside, this time dragging my husband into the open air to listen with me. He could not hear anything, neither could I. We returned to the bed, and once again I fell asleep to the sound of the camp. When I returned home to England, I showed a photograph of our site to a close friend who is psychic. He told me he could pick up the tinge of the 2 popes. That was in the 13th century, and the time of much activity between Rome and Avignon in particular, where we were situated. In a valley halfway between the border of Italy and Avignon, we would have been likely a place for the Roman soldiers to camp. By the way, sorry if I'm mispronouncing the area names. I can honestly say that I was transported back to that time for just a couple of evenings. We returned home after the second night's experience, otherwise I wonder whether more would have occurred. The second ghostly encounter was during another visit to France, this time in Brittany. A friend had allowed us to use her cottage for a short holiday. It was in the depths of the country, but near to a farm. Though the people at the farm looked after the cottage when she was not there, she was still very cautious. When we arrived, it took us quite a while to get the place opened up. It was a very odd, old cottage that had once belonged to a well-known French opera singer who used it as a retreat. She died there, some say of a broken heart, after her husband had left her for her secretary. The ground floor rooms were bright and airy, a spacious living room, tiny kitchen, and a small bedroom. The spiral staircase in the corner of the room, a popular means of reaching and utilizing the roof space, led to a huge bedroom with a deep apex of the roof visible. We settled into the comfortable cottage and met the young farmer's son who came to cut the grass and practice his English on us. He was due to go to college in England the following year. As in the Var, it was at night when the ghostly noises started, but this time my husband heard them too. The first 2 nights had been uneventful. The rain beat hard on the roof above our heads, and we wondered how watertight it was. There were a couple of leaks, but strategically placed bowls took care of that. On the 3rd night, the weather was calm and quiet. I had put out the light and lay gazing up into the black of the roof, hoping that there were no mice or rats to skitter above the rafters, when a steady knock, knock, knock came from the side. I would guess about the level of the eaves. I turned the light back on, breathless and nervous. My husband dismissed it as a drain pipe rattling outside, but it wasn't, I was sure. It was like a steady tap of high-heeled shoes, a measured tread of someone pacing in a slow and regular rhythm. But when I put the light on, it stopped. It began as I turned off the lamp and stopped when it was on. We slept with the light on that night. Next night, it was the same. I began to suspect a local teenager or someone was playing tricks. I crept to the outside door, opened it quietly, and stepped outside. I don't know what I expected to find. Someone with a long pole tapping on the roof? I walked all around the site, but there was not a soul. I persuaded my husband to move down to the little bedroom next to the living room, where I buried my head under the pillow and eventually fell asleep. We reported this mysterious noise to the farmer's son, who shrugged his shoulders and suggested it was the hot water pipes, but there were no pipes where the noises came from. We left early after restoring the cottage to its former, carefully locked and bolted safely. But I think the ghost of the opera singer was still able to walk there. When we reported this to our friend, she was perturbed, never having had anything like that happen to her. So why were we chosen to hear the footsteps? We've holidayed in France many times, always in remote colleges, and I've never experienced any other ghostly events. Otherwise, I would have begun to think France did not want us. So let me know what you think in the comments below of that story. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have a true ghost story of your own, you can email it to me if you'd feel okay with me sharing it. It's heytherehummingbird@runbox.com. I'll put the email in the description down below. And I will see you tomorrow night for another spooky story. So be sure to subscribe and turn on that notification bell to make sure you don't miss it. And until then, happy spooky October.